Hello. Good morning. Yeah, I'd like to thank Lighting Beetle for inviting me here, and sorry, Miguel, for spoiling your first talk with my incredible cough. I didn't realize my mic was switched on. So it's great to be here. 9 o'clock in the morning, excellent. It's always good to be the first one on, right? I've got I can either set the standard for the rest of the day, or at least by the time of the day finishes, you'll have forgot how bad my talk was. So, can everyone hear okay? It sounds really loud. Okay, so yeah, let's start. Just a little bit of information about who Futurice are. Has anybody heard of Futurice? No. Excellent. We have a market to break here in Slovakia. Maybe I'll open an office down here. So Futurice are a Finnish company actually, started in 2000 and built from a core of software development really. So our expertise is building software, and that's what we became pretty good at. And we started in Helsinki, and we had a second office in Tampere. Has anybody been to Tampere? Anyone been to Helsinki? Cool. So you'll know Tampere's like the Manchester of Finland, if you know what Manchester's like in the UK. And then, of course, what we've been trying to do the last few years is scale. So my job especially has been to internationalize this company. And I think what's special about this company is the way that we've blended, I think, quite nicely different disciplines. When we talk about this multidisciplinary approach, Futurice is definitely bringing design, technology, and business together in a new way that's quite exciting for me, and I think also very, very valuable for our clients. We hear every day this is the kind of questions our clients are asking us. I'm currently in the London office. I have been in Helsinki for 6 years, but now living in London, helping them set up that office. And just to say quickly, I think what Futurice do nowadays is we kind of break it down into three things. We call it builders, innovators, and change agents. And what that means really is that we want to keep our building capability at the core. So design and develop real services, digital services, and that's the core of our business. And then innovate, of course, we create new services from scratch. We work with our clients with a clean sheet, and we'll create a new business, we'll create a new service. And then more importantly in the last few years, very much so, is this, you'll probably all be aware of this digital disruption that we're all going through now. So we very much took this role of the change agent with our clients. Because we know how to build digital, we're also able to help our clients learn how to build digital, new ways of working, organizational change, helping them to get the right capabilities and the right mindset to be digital. Okay, some of our clients, I'm not going to stay too long on this because it's boring. So you're probably wondering what the hell LSC is, right? Lean Service Creation. I'm going to try and explain what this is. So we come from a software background, and I think what was pretty obvious in Futurice was that we were, following really classic agile development sort of techniques, modern kind of lean approach to building software. But what was missing, I think, when I started 4 years ago, it was very clear that we definitely weren't user-centric. We definitely weren't interviewing customers. We weren't thinking about the bigger picture. We weren't really doing much kind of market research. We were basically building software, and we were very good at that. So what we tried to do was bring the best tools and the best practices from these two different disciplines, from design thinking. If anybody knows, is everybody aware what design thinking is? No? Yes? So I come from IDEO. I spent 12 years at IDEO. So it's very much about user centricity. It's about prototyping. It's about collaboration. It's about iterative design. So what we did at Futurice, we kind of merged these two things together. We merged design thinking with agile development. And that created quite an interesting new way of working. But we also realized about 5 years ago that, we also needed to adopt this kind of like startup mindset. We saw, in the startup world, there's a completely different attitude to building digital services. And we realized that we had to embody some of that stuff. So we've basically joined these three things together at Futurice. So ultimately, we're getting a very multidisciplinary approach. We're highly collaborative. Of course, user centricity is at the core of all the projects that we do. And then solution focused, delivery focused, getting things out very fast, very quickly, and testing them. And of course, quite low risk. There's no point in spending €500,000 anymore on a big project. You break it down into little chunks, experiment, get it out, see if it works, iterate. Okay. So, what does it solve? What's the whole point of this way of working? There's a few things, and I've realized when I've been working with big clients, big organizations, I'll go through like five problems that I think LSC really tackles. This is the first one. If you're a management consultant, for instance, they get these great gigs with clients to they'll spend €500,000 developing a digital vision or a digital transformation strategy. And I think this is one of the problems our clients have. They don't know how to do that. They don't even know whether they need it. Do we need a digital transformation strategy? Do we need a digital vision? Do we need to see 5 years out what our digital experience will be for our customers? And I would claim that you don't need to do that anymore. And I would say that LSC comes in much more in a kind of way to experiment at a grassroots level. So very close to the market, you experiment with new services, you experiment with new businesses, and you feed those ideas back into the organization. And that gradually, over time, starts to form your digital vision. So it's very much a kind of new way of forming your digital future. I know everybody recognizes this problem, but again, very, very classic kind of organizational sort of issue where it's almost impossible to develop new digital services because the people actually building those services at the executional level are not able to make the decisions. They're not able to own the service. Often the idea comes from higher in the organization. It's often a business-driven idea, and it's already defined before the developers and the designers even start working. And I think one thing that's very clear with the companies that we're working with is that the development teams, they don't have any interface with the end user, so they're not able to work with the customer to help them direct what kind of service we should be building here. So this kind of hierarchical nature in many of the big organizations, especially the old kind of industrial revolution type organizations, finance, insurance, all these kinds of companies, media especially, having quite a hard problem with this. And I think LSC works to sort of like align this organization. It takes a slice through the organization and it helps people at every level to own the product experience for the customer and to share and be part of it together. Problem 3, classic one, right? I guess this is the thing that many people are going to be talking about today, and still pretty amazing, really. Even in my IDEO days, in the early 90s. Of course, we thought this was the bee's knees, right? User centricity, it's like obvious, right? It's like, how would you do anything worthwhile if you're not user-centric? I was just working with Tesco the other day in the UK. Tesco is like probably the UK's biggest retailer. And we did a design workshop they have like a mobile team, 40 designers. And we did a 2-day workshop with them, pretty standard, user-centered innovation workshop. And And the designers were coming to me afterwards and saying, wow, that was really great when you brought those customers in, when you brought those shoppers in. That was the best part of the whole workshop. That was the bit that really inspired us. And I'm going like, really? Like, you work at Tesco. There's like a Tesco on every street in the UK. There's like millions of shoppers walking into your organization every day. And still these people don't connect with the end user. Incredible, right? But I think, of course, it's not their fault. I think, the organization is not set up to allow that to happen. It's not that they don't want to. But this is the only way to be relevant, right? How can you be relevant in the world unless you connect with your end user? So LSC very much does that. So this is like problem number 4. I think you see this all the time when you work with organizations. Again, one of the biggest barriers to getting stuff done is the fact that people are not working together. And it takes quite a diverse team of people in an organization to develop a service. And you see straight away when you walk into these places that they aren't working together. So why is that? I think it's just, it's legacy. Often there's a big split between the business and the actual, executional teams, the people who build things. So it's all about ownership, like it's my idea, it's my business idea. I'm getting measured on the success of this product because it's a business idea. So fundamentally, these teams don't work together because they're not set up in the right way to work together. They don't have the right metrics. They don't have the right metrics as a team. They have metrics as individuals. So fundamentally, this kind of stuff is you have to actually go in and change the organization at a very kind of basic level before you can start working together. So LSC really starts to push these people together, and I'll explain a little bit in a minute how we do that. But it forces business people together. It forces business people with designers, with developers, with data, with leadership, with end users. So everybody is in the same room. Problem 5. This is really like, it's pretty incredible that, like most people in their jobs are focusing on the operational side, right? I've just got to get done what I've got to do, right? I've got to think about the short term. I've got to get this thing out now. I've got to hit the numbers, right? And of course that's important. There's no doubt about that. You have to keep the engine running. But it's amazing how many companies don't think about the long term. And LSC, I think, is a way to help companies think about both at the same time. Yes, think about the operational side, but also design in time for experimentation. Design in time to think about the future. If you don't do that, how will you be successful? You won't. You won't be successful if you don't think about the future. Okay? And of course, I think this feeling of not being allowed to fail is still very prevalent in many big organizations. And it's pretty amazing, really, that, failure is, there's plenty of stuff being written on this, but the failure is actually, is just one step closer to success, right? So the more times you fail, the more chance you're going to have of succeeding. It's pretty obvious, right? But again, these people in these organizations who develop digital services, or any services, or any products for that matter, they're not really allowed to fail. And that's something that we try to change with LSC. All right? Good. So I'll talk a little bit about the process, about how it works, right? A little bit diagrammatic. I hope it's not too difficult to follow. But ultimately, LSC it's a way to kind of like change the way teams work. And when I'm talking about teams, I'm talking about our clients' teams, right? So we force a different way of doing. So if you think about the old world, there was very much like, I remember working with Samsung in London about 4 years ago, and Samsung were developing a digital service. They wanted to kind of get into content. They were sick of, they wanted to sell more TVs, right? But they wanted to sell more TVs by developing sort of experiences. So they got into sport. I'll show you an example in a minute. And they came to Futurice with a 60-page brief. A 60-page brief, right? They came to our company. And that brief went through every single feature, detailed out, the whole thing, right? And clearly they'd spent quite a lot of time writing this brief. And I think that's a bit dangerous these days, right? To spend time creating a 60-page brief based on assumptions, right? And this application was for sport, right? It was for football guys. So they'd written a 60-page brief without meeting any footballers, right? So I think this is kind of the old world, in a way, in my view, where clients would come with a very specific brief, and you'd stick a team on it, and you'd build it, right? Easy. Paint by numbers, right? Pretty simple. So you can just stick an agile development team on there, go ahead, build it. Trouble is, you don't really know whether what you've built is the right thing, right? And what happened next was pretty fundamental, because all of a sudden, bang, digital disruption, right? We had all these startups coming in, doing things differently. Fast, lean, customer-centric, right? Getting things out in 12 weeks. Pretty incredible, right? So a lot of our big clients, they were going, oh shit, brief out the window. We don't know what we're doing anymore. We don't even know who our customers are. We don't know what products to make. We don't know what services to build. We're screwed, right? They were pretty worried. So that's not a very good position to put an agile development team on, right? And say, hey, go, build. Because, you don't know what to build, right? How can you build something when you haven't got a brief? So the brief is very, I think, throw away the brief, think about, getting out there and finding out what you should really do. So this was the big change, I think, for Futurice, why we decided to think about this LSC. And one thing we did was we started to work much more on a sort of like business idea level. So clearly clients had areas that they wanted to kind of like, they wanted to develop services in. But it wasn't like a fleshed out thing. It was just like an idea. And what we decided to do, because we had the competences in-house, we had technology, we had design, we had business thinkers in the company, we decided to create something that we call a service vision sprint. And a service vision sprint, it's pretty simple, right? This is not like, we weren't the first people to think about this. But a service vision sprint is a multidisciplinary team, technology, business, design, end users, client experts, anybody else in the world who has any kind of relevant input on that particular business idea. So what we do is we run a little experiment at the beginning of our projects called a service vision sprint. And this could be like, a few days to a few weeks. Take like Google Ventures as an example. I think these guys really started this way of thinking. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to develop a really cohesive service vision, concept vision, value proposition, whatever you want to call it. But it allows us to create a compelling piece of evidence for this business idea. So we've created a service. We've worked with customers. We know that it's desirable. Here's what they said about it. We know that we can build it. We've worked with the tech guys. Or we can't build it, right? But we know maybe it's, what we're dealing with from a tech point of view. We know how it makes money, if it makes money. So bringing back that service vision very early on with evidence that this will succeed is crucial to the way LSC works. Because at this point, clients often say, okay, brilliant, now I need to get like £1 million to go and build this thing, right? So of course they need to upsell the vision. Days to weeks. And then, we take a lot of this kind of learning from the startups, how they've built MVPs, they get stuff out there really fast, they test it with the customer. And we've done exactly the same, and we've added it onto our lean service creation process. So once you've got the service vision, it's about getting something out there as fast as possible. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It could be like, half-arsed. It could be like just a few features of the vision, right? It doesn't really matter. But as long as you get something built, live, piloted in the market, so you can start getting the feedback, because that's the loop that you need to create these days. You need to create that feedback loop. Analytics, user testing, qualitative, quantitative, all of that kind of feedback really helps you understand whether you've got something here or not. And this is, of course, weeks to months, right? You shouldn't really be in the market more than like 2-3 months if you're doing a pilot, right? You don't need that long. You could even do it in a few weeks, depending on the product, right? And at the end of that, of course, you have a pretty good idea, you know, where to go next. How do we make this service bigger? How do we scale it? How do we make it more successful? How do we kill it? It might be shit, right? No one might like it. So then we go to this is what we call the product market fit stage, okay? And then we go to like the growth, scaling, tweaking. Unless you've gone through this process, it's very hard to know whether you've got a successful service or not. So there's not even any point in trying to grow it and scale it until you know whether you've got something that really works at a fundamental level. So this is a little more mature, it's a little bit later on. Of course, it takes a lot longer to do. You could be talking months to years here in the market to really scale and tweak, consistently and coherently adapt the service or the product for the market. But the nice thing about this LSC approach, I think, is that we retain, or you at least try to retain, the multidisciplinary approach all the way through. You have to have the at least three competences there. Of course, you would have data as well, so you could even call that 4 competences going all the way through. Because often what happens when you launch a service, right, and you've probably all seen this, you've experienced it, sometimes it doesn't work, right? You see this dip here. You go, oh my, no, it's not working, what's happening? It's not getting the pickup, people don't like it. A competitor came in, killed our thunder, right? What do you do about that? If you've got a bunch of technologists sitting there, they'll go, oh, it's something to do with the tech. Well, let's fix it. If you've got a bunch of business guys sitting there, they'll go, oh, it's not making money. Why is that? So, and if you've got a bunch of designers sitting there, of course, they'll look at the customer and say, how do we make it better for the customer? Stick those people together again. Bring them in. As you constantly measure the service, bring them back. Bring that multidisciplinary team back. Check the service all the way around. Desirability, feasibility. Business, and work out what's wrong, and then decide to kill it if it's not working, or hopefully improve it. Make sure, find out what's wrong, fix it quickly, get it back in the market. But the nice thing about this is it also generates more ideas. The more you do this, the more ideas it generates, and it puts back into the kind of business. So this consistent, model of experimentation is really important. Okay. So I think what we did at Futurice was realize our clients really needed help with this stuff, and they didn't really understand how to get started, how to get going on this path. So of course we spent a lot of time in a way productizing this stuff. We have this book here that I have 6 actually. It's not going to go around 250 people, is it? You might have to tear pages out of it or something. But there's 6 books there, so if you want to come down and grab one, feel free to grab one. But I think that in a way we productized LSC, not because we wanted to make money, it's because we wanted to kind of break it down into different tools, different methods. We call them canvases, so our clients can really start to work with this process and these tools and methodologies. And of course, it's open source. Like everything that we do at Futurice, so you can go and download these things yourself. Go to leanservicecreation.com, and this is the mindset of a modern company, I think, where this kind of stuff is free and available and everybody can use it. Some examples of the canvases, I'll quickly go through these. Being able to put things in a kind of easy to understand kind of template for our clients has been super important. Things like we call the people board. But in this instance, it's the Chewbacca board, right? So if you interview Chewbacca, right, you can really quickly capture all the stuff that you want to know about Chewbacca, right? So what drives this person, or woman, man? Is it a man or a woman? I think it's a woman, actually. What drives this person? What's the barriers? What's the triggers? What's the key insights? What opportunities could we design for someone like this? And then we have things like the week in the life map, which is just a way for our clients to really ask the right kind of questions to the customer so they can say, hey, what do you say if it's like a newsreader or something that we're designing? You can really ask the customer on this kind of template what they do on each day. How do they access the news? What kind of news are you accessing? Why are you going to the application at this time of the day versus that time of the day? What sucks? What doesn't suck? It really helps, to understand the user behavior in a bigger scale. 24 minutes, good. Things like, ideation canvases, helping our clients to think about how to come up with ideas. It's not that easy for some people, right? Fake adverts are really important. I don't know whether you've ever done a fake advert, but imagine your service that you're developing. Imagine it in 3 years' time when you've launched it and it's super successful and it's on the front cover of the New York Times. What is it going to say? What's the headline? What's the picture, right? Why is it cool? Getting our clients to understand, or just articulate a future vision for the service is really helpful for them. Business goals and limitations canvas, very important one, I think, because often, clients, they don't really think about this deep enough. So you've got a concept. So, what does it mean for the business? Why is this concept important for our business? What business problem does it solve? How much revenue could it make? Can we even build it? Who do we need to partner with to build something like this? About how to launch a service. Okay, and then things like we call it the minimal lovable product canvas. So just helping our clients do a very high-level roadmap for the service. What's the first thing you're going to do in the first 6 months? You've just got this big vision. It's got 12 features. What's the first thing that you want to do? What's the first feature? What's the most important thing to launch? And then what are you going to do 6 months out? What are you going to do 12 months out? Just really easy tools for people to start to kind of frame the service or the product. This is the work we did. And again, using LSC to kind of expose the client to the actual content and the people, right? So in this room we had a Liverpool fan, a Tottenham Hotspur fan, there was an Everton fan in there. I'm surprised there wasn't a big fight. But we gave them beer and pizza, and it was pretty cool. But we also had Samsung in the room as well, so Samsung getting this kind of, wow, this is like a light bulb moment, right? We're really kind of working out what to do here with the football fans, breaking down football into its elements and working out what kind of application was really useful for these guys versus this 60-page brief that Samsung assumed. My mic's okay. Digital hospitality. I think the hoteliers are really kind of working out how to deliver a digital experience. But I think the LSC thing for me was more about the business side, the business and the technology. Hotels running off really, really bad legacy systems, right, that aren't able to do anything, but also developing something like mobile check-in. We did this mobile check-in app for Nordic Choice Hotels. And not only was it really beneficial for the business guys waiting 9 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning. This is every morning in one of the hotels, right? Shit, I'm in a queue, I'm late, It was not only beneficial for those guys, but it also saved an hour's worth of time back of office filling out. They used to fill out manual kind of invoices to their customers. This is back of house, staff. So from a business point of view, you can imagine how much money that saves over time, but also allows those people to come out and give face-to-face kind of, good old-fashioned service, right? And then this was us role-playing mobile check-in. Things like, I think you all know this, but digital is not a project anymore. We started with Helsinki Airport with one feature basically, and that was maps for the airport. But now it's consistent development. We have a team in there. We've been working for 4 years now. It's not only maps. It's iPhone stuff. It's parking services. It's shopping services. It's it's a continuous development of design and build that creates an end-to-end experience for the customer. It's never finished. Skip this one because I've run. Sorry. But I think the thing also about LSE is you can use it even in like, this is a pitch, right? This is a pitch with a company called Good Energy. So we took the business goals and limitations canvas, and as part of our conversation at the beginning, we just stuck up on the wall and said, right guys, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? And of course, it's super interactive. It really brings the whole team together around a focus, and you can really talk about what their ambitions are. What are they trying to achieve? What kind of services do they want to build? Super, super easy to do. All right, cool. That's it. Thank you for listening to me. I hope I've got some time for questions, maybe.
So, I'm going to share the stage with you. Thank you for your questions, guys. Obviously, people, guys and boys and girls in here are able to relate to the topics that you mentioned. And we have some nice things that I want to ask you, Ivan. Thank you for your participation. The first question we have here, yes, we can see it even up here on the top. Do you think the combination of quick sprints, testing, and iterations can replace extensive research?
No. It depends what kind of research that you're talking about. But of course you need, I think every big company still needs a dedicated team that's consistently looking at the market in a much bigger, deeper way. So of course you need your kind of market trend people, you need your like analysis people, you need your researchers who go in and work constantly. So it's not a substitute, but it depends on how fast you want to get stuff done. And it depends on what size of company you are. So, you know, if you're a kind of big company, you're going to have this anyway. You might as well make the most of it and join it together somehow. But that's often the hard piece. How do you join this kind of like extensive research that our clients are often doing with the kind of quick, fast, you know, digital service creation? It's sometimes quite tricky.
So unfortunately, we're not getting rid of the extensive.
I don't think so. I think you'll always need that, and I think you'll always need. I mean, there's so much change going on out there at the moment. You need people who are constantly kind of looking at that, and it's just becoming more and more important.
The next question: what are your most favorite collaboration tools in the company?
Most favorite collaboration tools: talking to each other. Sitting around the table, getting rid of all those digital tools, right? No, honestly, I think, you know, I'm one of those guys that says, don't send me a message on FlowDoc. I'm not. Don't email me. Can you at least call me, like on a phone, or get me in a room? There's no substitute for that. And I think even though we think we're becoming more and more digital, we need to remember that face-to-face human interaction is the most important in all of this stuff. So that's what I would answer that one. That's how I would answer that.
We expected something more elaborate, but is that simple? How do you get your development and UX people to work together? Because they are from different planets.
Get them to fight first. I haven't really seen that many problems, to be honest. I think it's been pretty straightforward. I think one thing that you need to do, it's not really that these guys don't work together. In a big organization, the problem is that they're not allowed to work together, right? They're not like put in the same room because somebody up here at a higher level is saying, this is the way we want to organize our company. And actually that's the problem. I think what you'll find is that if you create the space, the physical space, and you create the processes for that to happen, it will happen. And these guys will be super happy together.
That would be, yeah, okay. The next thing, 2 big companies, and the question is, if you are not a big company, but you are a small company working for a big company, what are the secrets to work with these?
What, the 2 big companies? If you are in a small team and they are not. Who asked this question? I'm not sure I understand it.
Someone frustrated, probably.
What are the secrets to work with big companies efficiently? Okay, now I get it. I think it's important to set your team up in a way that has like different levels of seniority. Because if you want to really talk to the organization, a big organization, you have to have different people in the team who are able to do that and comfortable to do that. And when you're talking about this digital transformation, Yes, you get your designers and developers in there. They, of course, like echo the designers, the developers on the client side, or the people who, the executional people. But we always put like somebody like me in the team as well, so I can also talk at the kind of C level or the CDO level, or the higher management level, because then you can get the alignment. It's all about just this kind of negotiation, alignment, and talking to the right people in the organization. So the best way to work with a big organization, if you're a small team, is to make sure you have the right levels of seniority in your team to mirror the organization that you're working with. I think that's how I would do that.
The next one would be how to close the gap between the ever faster innovation or product development and the ever so lacking corporate ability to implement or absorb innovation.
Well, I think there's lots of different models here. I think one thing that there's no quick answer to this, to be honest. I think what we're seeing now is that big organizations are, they're either setting up their kind of external kind of accelerators, a little bit like, distant from the organization, and hoping that, it seeds back kind of like innovation back into the big picture. But I think, the best approach these days is to try and bring those kind of accelerators more into the core. I remember with Procter & Gamble years back, we were building like innovation spaces inside all the headquarters. So we built like an innovation space where we designed the week for a Procter & Gamble person. We designed it differently. On Monday, you went to this innovation space and you had to have coffee with your customer and show them the ideas that you're working on, the new shampoo bottle or the new dog toothbrush or whatever, right? So on a Monday morning, you did that. On a Thursday morning, we called it the garage. They went to the garage and they prototyped it, they built it, they made it. So we had to design it in. And I think that's the only way when you get the real people in the organization doing innovation versus like almost subcontracting it out to the kind of the cool gang, right? Who are working on the cool stuff. So I don't think that's the answer. If you want really good, robust change, you have to do it in the organization somehow. Sorry, long answer, but it's a big question.
Yeah, everything's fine. We will see how much time we will need for this question. So this might be the last question. How do I persuade my bosses to implement?
Don't fire them. No, I mean, I think it depends on your boss, right? If your boss is a dick, then there's no point, right? But honestly, the thing that works, of course, is if you have some. Again, it's about your team. So if you have a business person in your team, it really helps because the boss is usually thinking about the numbers, right? The boss is usually thinking about the business, not always, but sometimes. And I think if you can kind of like build evidence, and that's why we do these service vision sprints, because when we come back with that service vision, we have business evidence. We go, hey, this service is going to make you X amount of money, it's going to compete with these guys, it's going to do this, going to do that, it's going to do this. So, bringing a business point of view back to your boss is a really great way of convincing them that this methodology is good. And of course, get the boss in the room, get the boss to meet the customer. And that's also like always a light bulb moment for these people who are often very far removed from the actual market, right? Even though they're the kind of CEO of a company, they're actually quite far removed from the market. So just get them in a room, get them to interview customers, and then you'll see that, they'll go, oh shit, I didn't realize that. That was interesting. Wow, I want to do this more. So it's gradual. You have to do a number of things.
Thank you. Well, there are some questions that have not been answered. I would like to ask you to answer them later, and you will find them answered on the website. I want to thank you, Anton, for your
pleasure.
Time, presentation, the knowledge and experience.
Thank you. Yeah.